Welcome to the next video in the Patterns in Nature topic. This video is going to be looking at 2 dot points. The first one, identify the materials required for photosynthesis and its role in ecosystems, and identify the general word equation for photosynthesis and outline this as a summary of a chain of biochemical reactions. Now, we've looked at photosynthesis a little bit in the local ecosystem topic already, but now we really need to make sure that we're really confident with understanding what's required for the process of photosynthesis to take place, why it's needed, and then basically a little bit more of the complexity behind the reaction of photosynthesis by having a look at the biochemical processes that take place in order to come to our endpoint. So as we know, photosynthesis is the process by which plants create glucose. This synthesis or creation of organic compounds from inorganic compounds is a process that all living things ultimately depend on. So as we looked at in the local ecosystem topic, we know that plants make food through the process of photosynthesis. Herbivores then eat the plants, carnivores then eat our herbivores, and our food chain and our food webs then continue. So if it wasn't for plants undergoing the process of photosynthesis in the first place, our ecosystems wouldn't have the energy required. And to meet the other part of the dot point, the materials needed for photosynthesis are water, which the plants get from the soil, which they're drawn up through their roots, carbon dioxide, which enters the leaves of the plants through the stomata, and chlorophyll, which is found in the chloroplast of the leaves. If we have a look at the word equation for photosynthesis, we start with carbon dioxide, which we get from the air. To the carbon dioxide, we add water, which, as I said, the plants draw up through the roots. Then our reaction needs 2 things in order to be able to proceed. So the first thing it requires is sunlight, so energy from the sun, and a substance called chlorophyll, which is found in the chloroplasts of all green plants. As a result of this reaction, we then end up with glucose, which we know that the plants can use for energy or store it as starch, and then other organisms, such as our herbivores, as we said, consume the plant material, and then that glucose is used for the process of cellular respiration. And the other thing that is created as a result of photosynthesis is oxygen, which then returns to the air through the stomata, which also animals can use for the process of respiration. So we need to have a look at how photosynthesis is a chain of biochemical reactions. So here we can see quite a complex diagram that sort of shows a whole heap of different things happening in the chloroplast of the cell. So we're going to break it down and have a look at 2 specific things that take place. The first one, as we can see here in this pink square, is the light reactions or the light-dependent reactions. So this is the only stage of photosynthesis that requires sunlight. But if there was no sunlight, this stage wouldn't happen and photosynthesis wouldn't proceed. So light is absorbed by the chloroplast and is used to split the water molecules in a process called photolysis. Okay, so it breaks the water molecule into its hydrogen and oxygen components. Okay, and then those are used in the other stage of photosynthesis in the light independent reactions. So this process occurs in these stacks of membranes called thylakoids, which are inside the chloroplast of the plant cells. So if we move on and have a look now at our light independent reactions, so this is also referred to as the Calvin cycle. It involves a process of carbon fixation. So remember, glucose is made up of mostly carbon, hydrogen, or is made up, of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms. So the carbon needs to be attached to the hydrogen and oxygen in some way. So in this case, we've got the carbon dioxide coming in, and the carbon from that is then used to create the glucose. So hydrogen that is released from the first reaction in the thylakoids is joined with the carbon dioxide to form the sugars that we require, and in this case, more particularly known as glucose. So this takes place in the stroma, which is this fluid that fills the chloroplast. So it's not actually a specific structure. It occurs in the fluid. So the carbon dioxide comes in. It combines with the hydrogen that was broken apart from the oxygen in the light reaction. So that oxygen is released, and then the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen come together in order to form glucose. So this part of the reaction requires ATP. So if we didn't have cellular respiration taking place at the same time in plants and creating the ATP, then we wouldn't have the end product of photosynthesis being able to be created as well. So this table is just a summary of the biochemical reactions involved in photosynthesis. And as I said, we can break it down into two components, the light-dependent and the light-independent reactions. So the light-dependent reactions take place in the thylakoids and uses water, ADP, and NADP. So ADP and NADP are two forms of energy. We don't need to know what they are. You just need to know that water and energy is used in the light-dependent part. So the products are created, so the water splits into its hydrogen and oxygen. We also have ATP and NADPH produced as well. So some other important information that's helpful about the light-dependent reactions is that energy is captured from the sun, which happens during the day. And obviously this is the first reaction to occur, because if we didn't have the hydrogen split from the oxygen, then we wouldn't have the hydrogen to combine with the carbon dioxide in the second part. So in our light-independent reactions, which take place in the stroma, as we said in the previous slide, we use carbon dioxide, which the plant gets from the air, and hydrogen, which is split from the water in the light-dependent reactions. The products include glucose, ADP, and NADP. So we can see here that the products of the light-independent reaction are used as the reactants in the light-dependent reaction. So both of them work in this really nice cycle to keep the process of photosynthesis taking place. So as we said, it's also known as the Calvin cycle. Does not require energy from the sun, so it can happen at any time. So the light-independent part can only happen during the day, whereas the light-independent part can happen at any time. And it involves the carbon fixation between the carbon dioxide plus the water that was split in the beginning. So this image just nicely puts it all together so we can have a look. So if we start off with our water coming in to our reaction, as well as our solar energy over here, into our light-dependent reaction. So this process is known as photolysis, and it takes place in the thylakoids, and the output or the byproduct is oxygen. So the hydrogen that's left over from the water then moves into the light-independent reaction, as well as the carbon dioxide from the air, in a process known as the Calvin cycle that takes place in the stroma, and the byproduct of this is water. So the main product of photosynthesis, as we know, is glucose. So water and carbon dioxide come together, form glucose and oxygen, and we can also have a small amount of water as a byproduct. We don't normally include water as a product of photosynthesis because the amount that's created is fairly insignificant in comparison to the amount that is required. So that brings us to the end of this video, and thank you for watching.